The space station gleamed like a jewel in the darkness of orbit. Stars reflected off its sleek metal surfaces, and lights blinked along its docking bays. Ships from dozens of species came and went, carrying diplomats, traders, and explorers. For the aliens who lived on the station, life was orderly, serious, and filled with strict rules. But today, a visitor from a distant world would change everything, at least for one of them. Princess Lyra of the Arcanis people walked through the station's corridors, her long blue hair floating slightly in the artificial gravity. She was young, proud, and playful, unlike most of her royal peers. While other Arcanis nobles carried themselves with cold dignity, Lyra enjoyed teasing, joking, and testing others. Her people were known for their strength and strict customs, but Lyra often ignored the rules that felt unnecessary. Her destination was the diplomatic hall, where ambassadors from different species gathered to discuss trade, alliances, and occasional disputes. Lyra's entourage moved quickly, but she slowed to look at a small human man standing near a holographic display. He was not tall, perhaps average by human standards, but his presence was unusual. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most aliens thought of them as weak, fragile, or unpredictable. Yet this one moved with a calm confidence. He studied the holographic symbols carefully, his hands moving with precision, adjusting the display without hesitation. Lyra smirked. "A human," she whispered to her aide. "Let's see what he is made of." Her amusement was not cruel. She simply liked seeing how other species reacted to her playful challenges. With a swift step, she moved closer to him. "Hello," she said, her voice light and teasing. "I hope you are enjoying our little station." The human looked up. His dark eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "I am," he said calmly. "It is fascinating. I have not seen anything like this before." Lyra's lips curved into a mischievous smile. She crouched slightly, then, without warning, she sat down on his lap, laughing softly. Among the Arcanis, this gesture was a joke, a playful test of reaction. She expected the human to shout, struggle, or pull away in shock. Most aliens would have. But the human did none of those things. Instead, he shifted slightly, adjusting his posture so she sat comfortably without losing balance. He smiled politely, his calmness only deepening her surprise. "You are very different," Lyra said, lifting an eyebrow. "Most beings would scream or push me away." "I believe in staying calm," the human replied, his voice steady. "It helps me think clearly, even in unexpected situations." Lyra blinked. For a moment, she forgot to tease. No alien had ever reacted this way. Her own people, despite their strength, would have lost their composure. Humans. They seemed different. Not weaker, not fragile, but unpredictable. She leaned back slightly, still laughing. "This is unusual," she admitted. "You are not afraid, not angry. Nothing, just calm." The human nodded. "I try to understand before I react. It makes life simpler." Lyra studied him more closely. There was a quiet strength in his composure, a patience that felt almost alien. She had met humans before, but they were usually timid or clumsy. This one was something else. "Do you often deal with dangerous situations calmly?" she asked, genuinely curious now. "Yes," he said. "I focus on what I can do, not on what I fear. Fear does not help solve problems." Lyra's amusement shifted into admiration. She had spent her life among proud, strong warriors, yet she had never seen anyone handle a surprise like this. Not even the strongest Arcanis soldier could remain so composed under a sudden test. Her aide nudged her gently, whispering, "Princess, should we remind him of protocol?" Lyra shook her head, still smiling. "No, Let him show us what humans are really like. The human adjusted slightly, ensuring she did not slip, and continued observing the holographic display. Lyra realized she had underestimated him. Her playful joke had turned into an unexpected lesson. Humans were clever, patient, and resilient. They did not act like other aliens, and perhaps that was their true strength. Time passed quickly as she observed him. Other diplomats and ambassadors looked on, curious but unsure what to do. Some whispered warnings about human unpredictability. Others simply shrugged, not understanding why Lyra seemed so fascinated. Finally, Lyra rose from his lap, laughing softly. "You are remarkable," she said. "I expected resistance, panic, maybe anger. Instead, you adapted." The human smiled. "I do what I can. It is practical." Lyra tilted her head, thinking. Perhaps humans had something the galaxy had not fully seen, a combination of patience, intelligence, and unexpected strength. One day, she thought, the galaxy would have to take them seriously. For now, however, she simply laughed and walked away, her curiosity growing. This human had intrigued her more than any alien diplomat she had met. Something about his calmness, his adaptability, and his surprising composure made her wonder what else humans could do if given the chance. And somewhere deep inside, Lyra realized that this was only the beginning. She had thought sitting on him was just a joke. But now she understood. Humans were not creatures to underestimate. They were unpredictable in ways the galaxy had yet to discover. The station hummed with quiet activity as Princess Lyra returned to her quarters. Her mind, however, was far from resting. She kept thinking about the human who had surprised her, the one who had remained calm, strong, and composed when she had expected fear or anger. Most aliens would have reacted poorly to her playful joke, yet this human had adapted easily. Lyra paced her room, her thoughts racing. "How can one being be so different?" she whispered. She had always believed that strength and power were obvious and simple, yet humans seemed to measure strength in ways she had never considered. Patience, intelligence, and calmness, all these were parts of a power she had not understood before. Her curiosity could not be ignored. By the next morning, she had made a decision. She would learn more about him, even if it meant breaking the usual rules of diplomacy. Lyra left her quarters quietly, her long hair trailing behind her, and headed toward the human's assigned quarters. The human was not expecting her visit, but he greeted her politely. "Princess Lyra," he said, inclining his head, "you honor me with your presence." Lyra smiled. "I am here because I want to understand you, humans, better." She paused, as if weighing her next words. "You are unlike anyone I have met, calm, clever, and strong in a way I cannot fully explain." The human's expression remained calm, but his eyes held a spark of curiosity. "I do not think I am so unusual," he said. "I do what I can with the skills I have. Perhaps other humans are the same." Lyra laughed softly. "Perhaps. But I have met many humans before, and none have reacted as you did. I need to see more." Over the next few hours, Lyra followed him through the station, observing his every action. She watched as he interacted with aliens of all shapes and sizes. When a young Zorvian diplomat dropped a tray of food, the human quickly helped without hesitation, but he also organized the scattered trays efficiently, turning the small accident into a smooth recovery. Other aliens watched in astonishment. Many whispered that humans were unpredictable, some even called them foolish. Yet Lyra's eyes glimmered with fascination. She had never seen a species handle mistakes and chaos with such calm and intelligence. Later, they walked through the station's training hall. Several aliens were practicing combat drills. The human did not join at first, yet he observed carefully. His eyes scanned movements, anticipating what might happen next. When a young Arcanist soldier stumbled during a sparring session, he stepped in, not to fight, but to suggest a small adjustment in technique. The soldier followed his advice, and the next move was executed perfectly. Lyra's jaw nearly dropped. "You teach without fighting?" she asked, incredulous. "Yes," he replied simply. "Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to guide, not to overpower." Her respect for him grew with every passing moment. Most aliens valued brute strength and showy displays of power. Humans seemed to use a different kind of strength, calculated, intelligent, and practical. She had never considered that intelligence and patience could be more effective than raw power. Later, she decided to test him further. She led him to a simulation room where holographic puzzles and strategy challenges awaited. Other diplomats often tried these exercises for fun, showing off their speed or knowledge. Lyra watched closely as he approached. He did not rush. Instead, he studied the holograms carefully, thinking about each move. Slowly, methodically, he solved the puzzles, surprising not only Lyra but other observers. Where they relied on speed and force, he used observation and logic. By the end of the exercise, he had completed tasks faster and more efficiently than anyone else. Lyra clapped quietly, trying not to show her excitement. "You are incredible," she said softly. "I expected unpredictability, maybe even mistakes. Instead, you are precise, calm, and clever." The human smiled. "I try to adapt. I watch, learn, and adjust, that is all." Her fascination grew into admiration. Lyra had always believed that her own species, the Arcanis, were the strongest and most capable in the galaxy. Yet this human showed her something new, a different kind of power, one that came from intelligence, patience, and resilience. As they walked through the corridors, Lyra noticed whispers following them. Other aliens were curious, some even wary. They whispered warnings about humans, unpredictable, potentially dangerous. Yet she did not listen. Her own observations told her a different story. Humans were not weak or foolish. They were extraordinary. By evening, Lyra and the humans sat together in the observation deck, watching distant stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, silent and full of possibility. Lyra finally asked, "Do you ever get afraid? Even humans must feel fear sometimes." The human looked at the stars, thoughtful. "Yes, we feel fear. But fear is a signal, not a limit. It tells us to think, to prepare, to act wisely. I do not let it control me." Lyra smiled. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple," he said calmly. "Not easy. Simple." Lyra leaned back, her curiosity turning into determination. She realized that humans could become important allies, or even a force the galaxy could not ignore. She had thought sitting on him was just a joke, a playful test. But now she understood. Humans had something unique, something worth understanding, protecting, and learning from. The night passed quietly, but Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. One day, she thought, humans might change the galaxy in ways no one expected, and she wanted to see it happen. Up close. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt truly curious, truly excited, and truly respectful of another species. This human had shown her that strength came in many forms, and sometimes it came in ways the galaxy could not anticipate. The station's training arena was alive with energy. Aliens of all species moved across the floor, testing their strength, agility, and skill. Weapons glinted, machines hummed, and the sound of exertion echoed through the vast chamber. For most visitors, this place was intimidating. For Princess Lyra, it was an opportunity to see the human in action. She led him to the entrance, her curiosity bright in her eyes. "Today," she said, "we will see how adaptable you really are." She smiled playfully, though her heart beat a little faster. She knew humans were clever, but she wanted to see if his calmness and intelligence could hold up in a test of physical skill. The human followed without hesitation. He observed the arena carefully, noticing the layout, the machines, and the training. Obstacles. Lyra expected him to be cautious or unsure. Instead, he moved with quiet confidence, scanning each station before stepping forward. Lyra's first challenge was simple for her people, a wall of varying heights that required climbing and balance. She demonstrated first, leaping and grabbing, each ledge with ease. The human watched, then approached. He did not leap recklessly. Instead, he studied the wall, finding holds that suited his strength and using careful movements. Slowly but surely, he scaled the wall, landing on the other side without faltering. The Arcani's soldiers watching whispered among themselves. "He is precise," one said. "Not fast, but steady." Lyra clapped softly. "Good," she said, genuinely impressed. "Most would panic at the first height. You think before acting." The next station was more difficult, a series of floating platforms over a shallow energy pit. Aliens often ran across these quickly, relying on reflex and speed. Lyra expected the human to stumble. He did not. He walked steadily, pausing when necessary, adjusting his balance. Each step was calculated and he crossed flawlessly. "Remarkable," Lyra said under her breath. "You adapt instead of rushing. Humans may be stronger than I thought." Other diplomats and trainers began to take notice. Humans were often underestimated. Most species believed strength came from muscle, speed, or natural talent. Yet this human showed a different kind of strength, a combination of patience, observation, and clever problem-solving. Finally, Lyra led him to the last station, a mock combat scenario. Robots moved unpredictably, simulating real opponents. Aliens usually fought aggressively, using raw power and reflexes to strike quickly. Lyra wondered how the human would react. The human did not rush in blindly. He studied the robots, noting patterns in their movements. Instead of charging, he found weak points, dodged efficiently, and used the environment to his advantage. When a robot blocked his path, he did not attack recklessly. He used a lever to drop a barrier, guiding the robot away without unnecessary force. Lyra's eyes widened. No one on the station had ever approached combat like this. Most relied on strength or weapons. Humans thought differently. "Why don't you just fight?" she asked, genuinely curious. The human shrugged. "Fighting is not always necessary. The goal is to succeed, not to win with force." Lyra smiled. She realized the human had learned something. Her people often ignored. True skill came from understanding, not just action. As the exercises ended, the trainers whispered among themselves. "He is unusual," one said. "Not strong like us, not fast, yet he wins every time." Lyra turned to the human. "You have changed how I see strength," she said. "Most beings rely on brute force. You rely on thought, observation, and timing. That is impressive." He smiled politely. "I try to adapt. It is what helps me survive." Lyra thought about what she had seen. Her own species valued power, pride, and honor above all else. Yet humans had a different kind of power. Calmness. Under pressure, clever thinking, and quick adaptation, these were strengths the galaxy often overlooked. She felt a strange mixture of respect and excitement. This human was not just clever or strong, he was unpredictable in the best way. That unpredictability made him dangerous to underestimate and valuable as an ally. The arena quieted as Lyra and the human left. Aliens who had watched whispered, among themselves unsure what to think. Some admired the human, others felt unease. He had done what few aliens could, succeeded without relying on raw strength, without showing fear, without panicking. Later, Lyra and the human walked through the station gardens, the soft hum of artificial wind and glowing plants filling the air. Lyra could not stop thinking about the lessons she had learned today. "You did more than I expected," she said. "You did not just adapt. You succeeded where others might fail. Humans may have a power we have not understood." The human looked at her calmly. "Perhaps. We survive differently. We use what we have, not what we wish we had." Lyra nodded. He made it sound simple, but she knew it was not. It required patience, awareness, and courage, the kind of qualities her people often overlooked in favor of sheer strength. As the stars glittered outside the station windows, Lyra felt a new sense of purpose. She had thought humans were small, fragile, and unpredictable, but now she saw them as capable, clever, and surprisingly strong. She knew the galaxy had yet to realize the potential of humans, and she wanted to see it for herself. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt that playfulness and curiosity could lead to discovery. The human had shown her that strength was not just physical. Intelligence, adaptability, and calm courage could change the outcome of any challenge. And as she watched him quietly, she realized something else. Humans were more than clever or strong. They were unpredictable in ways that could surprise anyone, even a princess. The calm of the station was shattered by sudden alarms. Red lights flashed across the corridors, and the deep hum of the station's engines seemed to vibrate faster. Princess Lyra, who had been walking with the human through the observation deck, immediately sensed that something serious was happening. A fleet of unknown ships appeared outside the station, moving with speed and precision. Their shapes were unfamiliar, sleek, and threatening. The aliens on the station panicked, rushing to their stations, shouting orders and preparing for battle. Yet Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. She knew the human had faced challenges she could not imagine. Perhaps he could help them in ways no one else could. The human stayed calm, observing the fleet through the observation window. "They are large, but their formation is predictable," he said. "If we act quickly, we can protect the station without unnecessary conflict." Lyra blinked. No alien had spoken like that under such pressure. Most would have been frozen by fear or shouted commands without thought. This human analyzed the situation clearly, even with danger approaching. She nodded. "Very well," she said. "Show us what you can do." The human moved quickly to the station's control center. He studied the fleet's movement patterns, identifying gaps in their formation. "They rely on intimidation," he explained. "If we can disrupt their formation, we can buy time and protect the station." The aliens around him were skeptical. "It's impossible," one officer shouted. "They outnumber us 10 to 1. No single human can do anything." The human smiled faintly. "Watch carefully." Lyra followed him closely as he began issuing calm, precise instructions. He directed smaller ships to move strategically, creating obstacles for the approaching fleet. He adjusted energy shields, using them to funnel the enemy into areas where their speed and numbers would not help them. Every move he suggested was measured, careful, and unexpected. The hostile fleet fired warning shots, but the human anticipated them. He used the station's systems to redirect the blasts harmlessly, protecting civilians and diplomatic delegates. Aliens watching in the control room were amazed. This human was not only clever, but also courageous. He did not panic, even when the threat seemed overwhelming. Lyra's admiration grew with every passing moment. She had always believed her people were the strongest and smartest in the galaxy. Yet this human had shown her something new: intelligence combined with courage, and the ability to adapt under pressure. The enemy fleet advanced further, and tension in the control room rose. Some aliens began to murmur that the human might actually succeed. Lyra could see it in their eyes: doubt, surprise, and slowly, respect. Then came the first real test. One of the larger enemy ships broke formation and aimed directly at the station's main energy core. The alarms screamed, and most aliens panicked, unsure how to respond. The human acted without hesitation. He calculated the ship's trajectory, then directed nearby defense drones to intercept, while using the station's energy shields to absorb the initial impact. Every action was precise. Every move minimized damage and risk. Lyra held her breath as the enemy ship slammed into the barrier. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and yet the station remained unharmed. The human had predicted exactly what would happen. He had turned a potentially disastrous attack into a controlled outcome. The hostile fleet hesitated, confused by the station's unexpected resilience. The human seized the opportunity. He guided a small strike team to disable the fleet's communication array, cutting off coordination between their ships. The once threatening formation became chaotic, and the aliens who had doubted him now watched in astonishment. Lyra felt a mixture of pride and relief. The human had not only protected the station, but had done so in a way no alien commander could have imagined. He used brains, strategy, and calmness, not brute force, to overcome a threat that seemed impossible. By the time the enemy fleet retreated, the station was largely intact. Aliens cheered, whispered, and looked at the human with a newfound respect. Even Lyra's advisors, who had doubted him from the start, could not hide their astonishment. Lyra approached him in the control room. I do not know how to thank you," she said, her voice a mixture of awe and admiration. "You acted with intelligence, courage, and patience. You saved this station when others thought it was lost." The human smiled politely. "I did what I could. I observed, adapted, and acted. Fear does not help. Thought and careful action do." Lyra nodded, realizing that humans were not weak, as many aliens believed. They were clever, resilient, and unexpectedly strong. The galaxy had underestimated them, and she now understood why humans could be such powerful allies, or even challenges, to anyone who ignored them. Later, as the station returned to normal, Lyra and the humans stood together on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly, quiet and calm again after the chaos. Lyra looked at him and felt a mixture of respect, curiosity, and admiration. "You are different from anyone I have ever met," she said softly. "I thought sitting on you was just a joke. I did not realize it would reveal so much about your species," the human chuckled lightly. "Sometimes small actions reveal larger truths." Lyra smiled. She had begun to understand humans in a way no one else had. They were clever, adaptable, and unafraid to face challenges in ways others could not predict. And she knew that this was only the beginning. The threat was gone, but the lesson remained. Humans were a force the galaxy could not ignore. They were clever, strong in unexpected ways, and unpredictable in ways that could surprise even the most powerful species. And Princess Lyra, who had once seen humans as playful and amusing, now saw them as remarkable, worthy of respect, and perhaps capable of shaping the galaxy in ways no one had yet imagined. Word count 950. The station's corridors buzzed with nervous energy. Though the immediate threat had retreated, everyone knew the hostile fleet could return at any moment. Aliens hurried to repair minor damages, recalibrate systems, and check defensive protocols. Yet Princess Lyra felt calm. She knew the human who had saved the station once could do it again. "He will find a solution," she whispered to herself. "Humans think differently. That is their strength." The human stood in the control room, eyes scanning the holo map of the nearby space lanes. He calculated the positions of the enemy fleet, the station's energy shields, and the limited resources at their disposal. Instead of panicking, he analyzed patterns, searched for weaknesses, and began formulating a plan. Lyra approached him. "What will you do if they come back?" she asked. He looked at her calmly. "We will use what they do not expect. They rely on speed and power. We will rely on observation, adaptation, and strategy. They cannot predict a human mind when it thinks quickly and calmly." Lyra smiled. "I like the sound of that." Soon warning lights flashed again. The enemy fleet was returning, larger and more organized. Aliens panicked, preparing weapons and shields, but the human did not move hastily. He assessed the fleet's formation, then issued instructions that were precise, unexpected, and clever. Small interceptor ships were sent to draw the enemy into narrow paths, where their numbers became a disadvantage rather than a strength. Energy shields were rotated, dynamically protecting the station while forcing the enemy to expend more power than necessary. The human anticipated their moves before they even acted, guiding the station's defenses like a conductor leading an orchestra. Lyra watched, amazed. She had expected humans to be clever, but she had not realized how quickly they could process danger and turn it into advantage. She whispered to herself, "This is genius. This is unlike anything I have seen before." The enemy fleet fired at full power, aiming to overwhelm the station's defenses. Yet the humans' plan worked perfectly. The lasers were deflected, trapped by redirecting shields, and their own attacks forced them into narrow corridors where their fleet could not maneuver. One of the largest enemy ships tried to break through, near the station's central hub. Aliens screamed, unsure what to do. The human remained calm. Using a combination of precise commands and carefully timed movements of drones, he blocked the ship's path. Then, using the station's energy manipulation systems, he created a controlled force field that gently pushed the enemy vessel away, preventing any collision. Lyra gasped. "It's perfect," she whispered. "He is not using strength. He is using thought." The fleet's formation began to collapse. Their coordination failed, confusion spread through their ranks, and for the first time, they hesitated. The humans seized this moment, sending precise signals to the station's communication arrays to jam their coordination, forcing the enemy ships to retreat further. Aliens in the control room were silent with awe. Many had expected a bloody battle, destruction, and fear. Instead, a single human had outmaneuvered the fleet without firing a single unnecessary shot. His calm intelligence had turned what seemed impossible into a victory. Lyra could hardly contain her admiration. "You did it. Again," she said, softly, almost in disbelief. "I thought your first plan was clever, but this is beyond anything I imagined." The human gave a small, polite smile. "We adapt, we observe, we act when it is most effective. Strength is not always physical. Sometimes the mind is stronger than force." Lyra nodded slowly, understanding the truth of his words. She had always believed strength came from muscles, weapons, and boldness. But humans showed her a new kind of strength, quiet, clever, and adaptable. It could overcome even the most powerful enemies if used wisely. Once the enemy fleet finally retreated into the darkness of space, the station erupted in cheers. Aliens hugged each other, laughed nervously, and began repairing minor damages. Lyra stood silently, watching the human, feeling a deep respect she had never experienced before. "You saved the station," she said softly. "You did it when everyone else panicked. You saw what they did not, and you acted differently. I do not know if the galaxy understands what humans are capable of." The human looked at her calmly. "Perhaps they will, in time. For now, we act with care, and we survive." Lyra smiled, a mixture of admiration and wonder shining in her eyes. She had thought humans were amusing, fragile, or unpredictable. She had even joked about their weakness. But now she knew the truth. Humans were clever, resilient, and capable of accomplishing things the galaxy could not anticipate. Later, in the quiet of the observation deck, Lyra and the human stood together. Stars glittered beyond the station, silent witnesses to the events that had just unfolded. Lyra turned to him, her voice thoughtful. "You are not like any other being I have ever met," she said. "I thought my little test, sitting on you, was a joke. I never imagined it would reveal so much about your species. You are remarkable." The human smiled faintly. Sometimes small actions show larger truths. Lyra nodded. She realized that humans had something the galaxy had ignored: ingenuity, calm courage, and adaptability. They could turn impossible situations into victories without relying on force. For the first time, she felt that humans were not just visitors from a distant world, they were a new kind of force in the galaxy. One that could surprise, protect, and shape the future in ways that even the most powerful species could not predict. And Princess Lyra, who had once thought of humans as amusing or fragile, now understood that they were clever, resilient, and unexpectedly strong. The galaxy had yet to recognize their true potential, but she had seen it, firsthand, and she would never forget it. The station was quiet now. Repairs were complete, alarms were silenced, and the diplomats returned to their duties. Yet Princess Lyra could not settle. Her mind was filled with thoughts of the human who had saved the station twice in a single day. He had not used brute strength, weapons, or intimidation. He had relied on intelligence, calmness, and clever action. Lyra walked through the observation deck again, watching the stars. She thought about how the galaxy often underestimated humans. Other species assumed humans were fragile, weak, or unpredictable. But she had seen the truth. Humans were clever, adaptable, and unexpectedly strong in ways no one else had considered. So, human joined her quietly. "The fleet is gone," he said calmly. "The station is safe." Lyra nodded, still looking out at the stars. "Yes, but more than that, you have changed how I see humans. I thought your kind was amusing, fragile, or silly. I never imagined what you could do when you apply your mind fully." He glanced at her, expression calm but thoughtful. "Strength comes in many forms. We use what we have, and we think before we act. That is all." Lyra smiled, realizing the simplicity of his words hid something profound. She had spent her life among the strongest warriors of her species, yet this human had shown her that power was not always measured in muscle or speed. Intelligence, observation, and patience could accomplish far more than raw force. She turned to him, her eyes serious. "I want others to understand what I have learned. Humans are more capable than anyone believes. You are not just survivors. You are remarkable beings. The galaxy, it has yet to see what humans can truly do." The human smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but actions speak louder than words. For now, we continue to do what we can, quietly and carefully." Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of admiration and determination. She had thought sitting on him was a playful joke, but now she understood that. The joke had revealed a truth far greater than she expected. Humans were clever, adaptable, and courageous. They could solve problems no other species could, and their unpredictability was a power in itself. Later, she moved through the station, speaking with other diplomats. She shared what she had seen, but carefully. Many were skeptical, some dismissive. Yet a few listened closely, realizing the truth behind her words. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not weak. They were extraordinary, and Lyra had proof. In the training arena, she watched the human again as he quietly helped the station's crew repair equipment and organize supplies. He did not boast or seek recognition. He acted calmly, efficiently, and cleverly. Every move reminded her of the lessons she had learned. Patience, intelligence, and adaptability were as important as strength. perhaps even more so. That evening, Lyra invited the human to her quarters. She wanted to speak more privately, to express the respect she felt. "You have taught me much today," she said. "Not just about humans, but about what true strength can be. It is not always visible. It is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, clever, and adaptable." The human smiled politely. "I do what I can. That is all any of us can do." Lyra nodded, thinking, perhaps the galaxy would eventually understand. Humans could change the way conflicts were handled, the way challenges were solved, and the way civilizations viewed power. They were unpredictable, yes, but in ways that could be a gift or a challenge to anyone who underestimated them. As they stood together by the observation window, watching the distant stars, Lyra felt a new sense of respect, not just for him, but for all humans. She had once seen them as fragile, amusing, or strange. Now she saw them as clever, resilient, and capable of achieving the impossible through thought, courage, and adaptability. "You are different from anyone I have ever met," she said softly. "I thought my little test was just a joke. I never expected it would reveal so much. You and your people are more than the galaxy knows." The human looked at her calmly. "Sometimes small actions reveal larger truths." Lyra smiled. For the first time, she felt that the galaxy could not ignore humans. Their cleverness, adaptability, and courage were a force to be respected. Perhaps one day they would influence events across the stars in ways no one had yet imagined. "I have learned a lot today," Lyra said, "and I want to see more. Humans. You may surprise the galaxy further." The human nodded. "We do what we can, quietly, carefully, and thoughtfully." Lyra felt a deep admiration and respect. She had thought humans were small, weak, or simple. Now she knew they were something entirely different. They were clever, resilient, and capable of achievements beyond the expectations of anyone, including herself. As the stars shone silently beyond the station, Lyra realized something important. She would no longer underestimate humans. Their unpredictable strength, intelligence, and courage were qualities that could change the galaxy forever. And she, Princess Lyra, would remember the lessons she had learned from this one remarkable human. With a final glance at the stars, she smiled. The galaxy had yet to see what humans could truly do, but she had. And that knowledge, that understanding, was enough to fill her with wonder, respect, and hope for the future.